Hey there, budgeteers. Are you ready to unlock the power of each payday and take control of your finances like a boss? Introducing the Payday Power Planner from New Money Habits. This isn't your average budgeting tool. Oh no. With the Payday Power Planner, you'll harness the unique rhythm of your paychecks to supercharge your financial game. Say goodbye to the confusion of monthly budgets and hello to the clarity of every payday. You'll know exactly when money is coming in and when it's going out, giving you the edge you need to stay on top of your finances. But that's not all. With the Payday Power Planner, you'll easily spot whether you're rocking a surplus or facing a deficit. Armed with this knowledge, you'll make informed decisions that set you up for financial success. It's time to transform your relationship with money and create the new money habits you need to achieve financial freedom. Get your hands on the Payday Power Planner from New Money Habits today and start making every dollar count. Don't let financial stress hold you back. Create a better plan for your money and seize the power of your pay period and thrive with the Payday Power Planner. Visit newmoneyhabits.com now to grab your free copy and unleash your financial potential. What's up, budgeteers, and welcome to the New Money Habits podcast. I'm your host and one of the co-founders of New Money Habits, Coach Nino Villa. Today, I continue my conversation with Maria about the stages of change, and I open up about my own struggle to change one of my own current money scripts. If you have any questions, be sure to hit us up on social at New Money Habits and follow us on your favorite podcast platform, or tell your smart speaker to play the latest episode of the New Money Habits podcast. If you want to help out the show, consider leaving a 5-star rating and review. We cannot thank you enough for leaving those 5-star ratings and reviews. They truly help us to spread this message of hope to people looking for a better plan for their money. Now let's get into today's episode. Yeah, because I'm trying to inspire hope into anybody who has relapsed. You know, I see it far too often where people do find themselves out of debt and then all too easily find their way back into debt.
Okay. Well, let's talk about how that happens. I think that's actually a really good conversation to have because we could talk, 30,000 foot view all day, but unless we get into some of the weeds with our listeners, they're going to be like, I can't relate to this. So how does a relapse happen? What is something that takes place where all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm not where I want to be anymore?
Yeah. I will tell you, for me, getting back into debt began with buying a used car. So back in 2017, was looking for a new vehicle for the family and approached it differently than I had ever purchased a car, differently than I had ever
approached purchasing a car.
Thank you.
Yep. I have those moments all too often. I get it.
And the difference was I actually had all of the money in the bank to just buy the car. But I knew I was also going to go through the financing game. One, because I had heard that you're going to get a better price on the actual car because they figure that they're going to make it up in the financing. And two, I actually did want to see, like, what would the financing look like? How much would that payment be? And that's when I had a huge aha moment where signing the paperwork, I recognized at that moment that if I just made the minimum monthly payments for the full 5 years, the length of the loan, that over the course of 5 years, I would have paid a total of $1,700 in interest on financing $15,000. And so it got me thinking, do I really want to part ways with $15,000 cash today when I could just spend $1,700 to retain that $15,000 and do something else with it that could either outperform the interest or create a new stream of income? I was like, wait a minute, I don't think I want to part with 15 grand today.
Okay. So let me ask you, did you use that $15,000 to create a new line of income or to create more interest?
It was definitely used in some way, shape, or form to invest in me and growing my business. I don't
Okay.
remember exactly how, but yes.
Okay. So that might actually not be quote unquote relapsing. But I understand why you brought that up. And I think it actually brings to mind a really good, important thing for us to share. I think it's important to define what behavior change you're looking to do prior to identify whether or not it's a relapse. So, in this particular case, not with your case, but the example of debt in general, it's only super important if somebody has decided they absolutely, under no circumstance, want to have debt. Like that's one of the things that we have to establish before saying that this is, what's happening. In your case, based on what you said and what I know about you and your situation, I don't think that you have a complete aversion to debt in general. And you just want to have a more intentional approach to how you do any sort of spending of your money.
Yes, but I think it's fair and important to say that between 2013 and 2017, I was on a rapid get out of debt, get rid of
Trajectory.
it. And so I think I was telling myself that I wanted to be completely debt free,
Okay.
but I did that and I took out a home equity line of credit to build a backyard when I started to realize maybe being out of debt isn't the top of my value list as I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So that's really good. So you actually were able to, you started something and then you were able to identify when that needed to shift a little bit. So you were willing to shift with the need for
Mhm.
shifting. So that's actually important too. Um, I want to get back to the whole idea of, though, let's just say for the purposes of this conversation that somebody really is debt averse, like they don't want to do
Yep.
anything with debt. And so they have started their program, they are killing it, and all of a sudden they find themselves back into $20,000 worth of debt, let's just say. My question is, how did I don't, people who are not watching don't know that I just use air quotes around find themselves. But there's a reason I did that. And it's funny because when I started doing my own journey, I would say something like, yeah, my husband and I, we found ourselves in $70,000 worth of debt. And immediately I'd stop and go, we put our own butts right there by the choices that we made.
Yeah.
And I needed to be able to own that. And that was part of the whole journey, was recognizing our role in that and not pretending that it all quote unquote happened to us, or that one day we just woke up and found ourselves in this mess. And so that's important for this question, because what I'm wondering is, if we quote unquote find ourselves in a certain mess, when did that relapse happen? It did not happen at $20,000. When did it actually start to take place? What are your thoughts on when that might have started?
That's really interesting. I think um, it could easily stem from when maybe some things did happen kind of to you or unexpectedly, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like maybe a medical bill creeped up that you're like, I did not expect that medical bill. And
Mm-hmm.
so maybe a part of it is I found myself in this, but then I allowed that to affect my demeanor, my hope, my vision, and say, almost throw my hands up like, oh well, if I'm in that debt, well then I'm not going to what limit myself in these other areas. Like I'm just going to
Mm-hmm.
do the things I want to do, and debt's just a part of my life. And so, you know, throw your hands
Yeah.
up and just give up.
Yeah, we actually we call them money scripts, and you start to say them over and over and over, and then you start to live them out, and that's one of the things that you were just describing.
Mm.
uh, Oftentimes there's also, with that sense of hopelessness, there's the sense of apathy, which actually is not a really good emotion to have. It's because it just means I'm not going to do anything. Like, there's sadness that can motivate, there's frustration that can motivate, but apathy, it's like I
It's
just don't care
actually
anymore.
dangerous.
Right, right. Yeah, I don't care. And so I know that oftentimes people will get into apathy spending. And I know a lot of people don't understand what that really means, but I affectionately call it effort spending. Like you're just to the point where you're like, I can't do this anymore. I'm just if I'm gonna die broke, I might as well die happy. Like there's that mentality that comes in. And to your point, you just start spending on all of the things and not some of the things. It just continues to snowball for you. The point though is that one small thing happened and we continued to build on that thing. So we kind of exited that maintenance with one small thing. And then I think we talked about it in a previous episode, that whole idea of compounding, where in the beginning it doesn't really feel like anything's changed. And so we
Mhm.
don't get that immediate reaction, good or bad. And so we're like, oh, that was no big deal. And so we just keep doing the same thing until all of a sudden we are like, oh my gosh, now we have this $20,000 worth of debt. And now we're feeling the stress that came with it. The other stuff wasn't there. And so oftentimes during that time we're actually in pre-contemplation. We started doing, we relapsed, and now we're just in pre-contemplation again, because it's like we've been allowing that to happen. It hasn't bothered us enough to do anything about it.
Mm.
And so like the name of our company is New Money Habits, and there's a reason for that. We recognize that there are habits that take place, that's just a behavior that you do over and over and over and over again. And there are I don't like the terms good and bad, but productive and unproductive are definitely good terms for that, because it's like we can see, is it putting us in the direction that we want to, or is it not? Productive money habits doesn't sound as good as new money habits, but also we're looking for something that's new, something that is going to be, it's going to serve us better. And so that's part
Mm.
of why we chose what we did. But I think that when you say, how does somebody get out of that? It's important to go back to, what was that initial habit? What was that spark moment that made you do something different? And then analyze that. Don't necessarily say, well, that was it. That was like, I walked into a car dealership and I did this. That might have been part of it. But if that wasn't the thing that really got you off track, you don't want to try fixing the wrong thing. Make
Mm.
sense?
Right.
So you really want to go back and say, what was the thing that actually sparked that? And was it the actual event that sparked it, or was it what I was thinking about that event that then had me do something about it? And that was the actual problem. Because oftentimes we think we know the event and we know the consequence or the behavior that came, but we do not identify what's going on in our thinking and in our feelings. And if we can get to that, that's usually where we can make that change and get back onto the cycle of change.
Hey there, budgeteers. Good news can only be good news if there's bad news. So, what's the bad news? The bad news is you and I have a deadly disease called sin, and this disease causes us to rebel and disobey God. See, God is holy, righteous, and just, and He cannot be in the presence of sin. So this horrible disease of ours separates us from the God who created us. And the bad news gets worse. There isn't anything you or I can do to make ourselves right with God. We are dead in our sins and on our way to an eternity separated from God. But that's not God's will for us. See, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish but have everlasting life. God did what only God could do. He made a way for us to be reconciled to Him through Jesus Christ. Jesus came into the world to save sinners like you and me. While we were still sinners, storing up God's anger against us for our rebellion and disobedience, Christ died for us. Jesus took the punishment that you and I deserve and have earned. Jesus is the substitute for your punishment and mine. Now, isn't that some good news? The word gospel means good news. The gospel of Jesus Christ is that you and I broke God's law and Jesus paid the fine. When we place our faith and trust in Jesus, we get to experience God's grace and mercy. Our gratitude should turn us from our rebellious and disobedient sin toward God, seeking after Him and His righteousness. When we do, God gives us a new heart and a new mind. Praise God for His goodness, and remember, God loves, humans sin, Jesus saves. Interesting. Might you have an example of what you mean when you say, like, I know the event, um, but I don't know what I was necessarily thinking?
Yeah, so we actually already brought one up, and that's the whole apathy thinking. So the event is, the medical bill happens to you, and that actually is something you did not necessarily control. And one of the things I tell my students is expect the unexpected, and they're like, "What do you mean by that? If it's unexpected, how can you expect it?"
Mm.
And it's that idea that it's going to happen. Something's going to happen because it's just life. But if we're in a spot, and I have been in this spot before, where I've had high deductible plans and I have to put down, $11,000 to $14,000. Our youngest daughter, the one I just bragged about earlier today, cost us $23,000, and it's because we had high deductible plans that went on December because I was quote unquote, high risk because I was geriatric, as they like to call us, and then in January is when she was born, and so it started the whole new deductible year, and so that year was a $13,000 deductible, and so we got to pay both. That was real fun. So there are things that happened to us. There are circumstances that we do have no control over. So we see that, and then we see the result of that. Maybe it's okay, well, now I've got all of this debt. But what we don't see, what we don't identify in the beginning is that mantra of, if this is going to happen to me, I have no control over it. And so why do anything about it?
Mm.
That's one of the things that we might be thinking. Or another thought might be, bad things always happen to me. I can never get ahead. Things like that. And so it's stuff that we know happens with people, but we oftentimes have those thoughts at more of a subconscious level. So we're not identifying them. And because of that thought, we might then feel the emotion of apathy. And then that turns into that apathy spending. So if we want to, the point of all that is, if you only know the activating event and then what your response to that event was, you might go back and say, well, what we need to change then is not having a $23,000 baby. Okay, well, that's done. Can't really change that. Now, could we change it going forward? Maybe. Now, this is obviously an extreme example, but use it anyway. But what we can change is our thought about that. Bad things always happen to us, and rather than staying there, how about we count the blessings that, we have this child that we weren't expecting? That's one really good blessing. The other blessing is we had the ability to make the payments that we needed to make. Many people don't have that ability to do that. Maybe the idea is, since I've been through this entire journey, I know now the steps that I need to take in order to pay that off well. I know how to stay organized. I'll tell you one huge blessing that I had in that scenario was, I knew how to organize all of the EOBs against all of the medical bills, and was able to tell the doctors when they owed me money versus the other way around.
Oh, wow.
And that's because of the journey that I had before. So if you can start recognizing all of that, that's going to create a different result. Now, it's still going to feel like a $23,000 hit, and it's not going to feel good. And it might still happen again, but I'll know how to deal with it differently because you can change the thought and then the emotion around that.
Yeah. So let's go on the opposite side of the spectrum, thought wise, to somebody this somebody in this scenario is going to be this guy right here.
Okay.
Nino.
All right.
Okay. So Nino hears, hey, don't have a limiting mindset and don't have a mindset of scarcity. And so what about us who think we can just like out earn our stupid? Like, I keep making dumb decisions, not constantly, but like from time to time. I'm like, okay, well, I'll be able to like earn enough to kind of cover that decision. And so it's evident to me now, listening to you speak about thoughts, like, oh, I need to address that thought. So Maria, help.
Hey, I didn't know today was going to turn into an actual session. My goodness.
I know.
Oh, the things I'm not prepared for. No, but I actually really do like the question. So, what would you say is the thought that you're trying to do? The thought specifically is, I can out earn my stupid.
It's while, so sometimes I will take out debt as a means to invest in myself
Mm-hmm.
so that I can then earn more later.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I'm like, I'm adverse to doing it from time to time. Like, I don't really want to do that. But right now, I'm whatever the situation's kind of calling for. If this thing is going to happen, I need to take some money out so that I can cover expenses until it kind of pays off. And so I just kind of think like, oh, I'm going to be able to out earn these decisions. But that's not always the case, or not like on the timeline that I want. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm still carrying debt that it's like I thought I'd have that paid off by now, but that hasn't
Mm-hmm.
happened.
Do you then go and do that over again?
No,
Okay. So right now you're just frustrated that you have debt that this mindset got you into, but you have not continued that mindset.
no, that doesn't mean I haven't contemplated doing it, but I've
Okay.
refrained from doing it.
Okay. Well, it actually sounds like you're doing okay then. I'm not so if you've refrained from doing it, so sometimes we can't get rid of the thought,
Hmm.
but we can change how we react to that thought.
Okay.
And you have been changing how you're reacting to it. And part of it's because you're recognizing how you feel because of the decision that you made when you did it.
Mm-hmm.
So have you heard of like Pavlov's dog? You know, like
Oh
conditioning. Do
yeah,
you know what
yeah,
conditioning?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we are conditioned to think a certain way. When we have responses that happen, we sometimes call them consequences. Sometimes they're just reactions. But if enough of those happen over and over and over, it shifts how we behave one way or the other, positively or negatively. And you made a decision on something, and it gave you a certain feeling that you didn't like. And so you've actually shifted how you handle that when you get that mind again, when that thought comes to your mind again.
Hmm.
I don't know
Got
if
it.
you need as much help in that area
As
as
I
you
thought I
think.
did. Yeah.
Yes, yes. That doesn't mean you don't need help in other areas, sir, but
Very true.
but I
Very
do
true.
commend you for recognizing that that's a thought that you have, and then being able to shift how you are going to respond to that thought.
Hmm.
My question would be, what are the thoughts you have around the situation that you're in right now? So you've already done that. And there's something going on in your mind about that you haven't shared yet. I don't know what it is. I just know you haven't shared it yet because that's what bothered you enough to bring it up.
Yeah. Well, as somebody who's self-employed with multiple streams of income, those streams of income, it's almost like a real estate agent, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
feast and famine moments,
Mm-hmm.
and this particular year, things have been tighter than normal. Like, God is so good, I can still put food on the table, keep a roof over my head, pay all the bills, but things are just a little bit tighter than they normally are, and I'm looking for uh, ways to alleviate some of that squish. But my mindset, I'm a very complex person who is super simple. I'm seeking God's will in all that I do. And over the last couple of years, I realized in a couple of areas of my life where I was out of alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to get back into alignment. For instance, getting my tax situation cleaned up, right? So I'm reflecting back on when God has provided in times and in ways I never saw coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I was laid off in 2016. I was one of like 20 some odd people laid off in one department, and we're all having conversations afterwards. And I just remember saying, like, I, to every single person, I said, "Look, I am surprised, but I am not worried. I'm not mad, and I'm not worried because I know God will provide. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I know He will."
Mm-hmm.
And then He did in a way that I never saw coming. I had an old colleague reach out to me. She was all like, have you ever considered doing some freelance work? It's like, never really thought about it. Talk to me. And all of a sudden I was doing freelance work, and it was a tremendous blessing, not just financially. Like, yes, God provided financially, but all of a sudden now I had flexibility in my work schedule. I got to kind of dictate things. Like, that's a blessing I did not see coming.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got thinking about it, and I was like, well, this has actually happened a couple of different times in my life where when I finally just let go and I have zero expectation, and I'm just like, I don't know what you're doing, God, but I trust you. He always comes up in a way that's just like, I didn't even see that coming. Like, wow. And again, not always financially. It's not always with a dollar sign attached to it.
Sure.
It's just like, wow, I had no idea that was coming. So I'm in that season. I'm in one of those seasons where it's all like, all right, God, you are asking me to go there again. And this time I'm struggling to get there as easily or just as freely or just as like as carefree as
Mm.
I've gotten there before. And so I start to overanalyze that in my brain. And like, what is that about? Like, do you really not think he's going to provide like he always has? Like, no, of course I know he's going to. It's just like, but if this time you could just tell me when and where, like that'd be great. So it's,
So you're trying to hang on to a little more control this time.
yeah. Oh, and it's not so much control as, like I said, I'm way over analyzing this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
all like, God, what do you want me to do? Exactly when do you want me to do it? How do you want me to do it? Where do you want me to do it? When do you want me to, like, and it's like, did I miss something? Am I not doing like,
Mm-hmm.
am I not doing what you want me to do? Like, am I not where you want me to be? Like, and I'm just like spinning my wheels over here. Hey there, budgeteers. Are you tired of feeling like your finances are running the show? Well, it's time to flip the script and take charge of your money with New Money Habits Financial Coaching. This isn't your typical financial advice. New Money Habits is about empowering you with the knowledge and tools you need to make savvy money moves and build a solid financial foundation. Here's the deal. We're offering a free discovery session to kickstart your journey to financial freedom. Yep, you heard me right. Free. In this session, one of our experienced coaches will help you to pinpoint your financial goals and create a better plan for your money. We're talking about mastering your money mindset, picking up practical money management skills, and having someone to hold you accountable along the way. So, if you're ready to kiss financial stress goodbye and say hello to a brighter financial future, then schedule your free session today to create the new money habits you need to achieve financial freedom. And that's what I mean by before, I never concerned myself with any of that. I
Yeah.
wasn't asking myself, am I where you want me to be, when you want me to be? And in looking in the rearview mirror, hindsight 2020, it's like I was always exactly where he wanted me. This time I just seem to be like freaking out about it, and it's all like dad, 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 dad,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm. So I know that you didn't like the word control.
Yeah.
I mean, you jumped on it and then pulled away from it. So it
Mm-hmm.
must mean you just didn't like that word. And that's why I'm going to double down on it and just say it's a sense of control over knowing what's next. So like you want the details. It's not that you're wanting to be in control of what's happening, but you want enough faculty to know what's happening next, even if you're not the one deciding to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past, you didn't know that either. You just trusted.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been a shift in a need for control. So like that mindset of I'm willing to do what you want, but I need to know what that is. And in the
Mm.
past, you were like, I'm willing to do what you want, and I don't always know what that is. So maybe the script that you're saying is, I need to see the big picture before taking the first step. So if you're going to switch that, it's going to be, I'm going to trust the big picture and just take this next step and be
Yeah.
confident in that.
Yeah. And thank you for that, because it's very validating, because it's exactly what he's been telling me. And so like that's exactly what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess what I'm also doing is always second guessing, like, is this the next step you really want me to be taking, or am I like on some path that I think is your path, but really it's my path? And
Mm-hmm.
you're like, but Nino, I want you over here. And he's given me no clear indication. And in the past, he has given me clear indication that like you're about to go on your path, and this is the path I have for you. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not getting this time, so I'm all like, really? Like this path? Are you sure? Are you sure I'm allowed to have this path? Like, because it feels like it's mine, but you're telling me. So,
Well, I don't know. I'm sure this is not what you're looking for, but I will say if you go on that path and it's not the path that he wants you on, there will be barriers put in place. And,
for sure.
oftentimes those guardrails are given to us for a reason, and they sometimes look like pain and they sometimes look like discomfort. And sometimes they're just redirecting us to where we actually
Mm-hmm.
need to go. And that's sometimes how he speaks to us. So there is that portion of it as well. But I'm going to bring it back, if I can, to your original question, which
Yeah.
was about, okay, I have this tendency to go into debt to create money to then use it later, and I try to out earn. I think you said out earn my stupid or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what this is. And
Hmm.
so that's why I'm encouraging you to just really look differently at it and ask yourself, is that really what this is? And if you bring all the stuff that you just talked about, and then you go and try to invest in something that is not necessarily where you think you should be going, then it is absolutely connected. So I don't know if that's the case. Is that what are you saying, that maybe part of you is saying, okay, well, he wants me to go over here, and that requires that I actually, take out extra debt in order to do it? Or is that not even, I don't
I
know the
think it's a
story. So,
possibility. I think it's a
okay.
possibility that I don't feel comfortable with.
Okay. So you, in a way, do think, just to clarify, that that's partly what he's asking you to do.
No, I think truly what I think he's asking me to do is just trust.
Okay.
You
And not
don't
go
have
into
to
debt
do
over
that.
it.
You don't have to do that,
Yes. Okay.
and you get to do that.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so oftentimes when we're trying to quote unquote out earn our stupid, it really is us trying to take control back.
Yes.
We're trying to say, okay, well, I know better, and I know that this amount I could invest this, only have to pay it 1% on here, and then I could take it and I could earn 3% over here, and blah blah blah. But we don't have the whole picture. So we really are putting our trust in ourselves and the limited information and knowledge that we have. And oftentimes that's where we get ourselves into trouble. And so it doesn't sound like that actually is aligned with what you're wanting to do. And therefore, it's not something that you should be doing. But
Yeah.
it has a lot different response than just don't do it because it has the word debt attached to it.
True. Yeah. It's not debt alone, because like if it was something completely different, like real estate, let's say, I would
Mm-hmm.
I would borrow against the property in a strategic way. Like, so it's not debt adverse per se. It's debt adverse in this particular situation under these circumstances.
Mm-hmm. And maybe you don't trust yourself enough to actually follow through. And
Mm-hmm.
then that would create this debt that would not give you the result that you were hoping for. And I could see that. I could see that in my own life as well, not
Yeah.
just yours. So that is something for our listeners to kind of pick apart, is the thing that I'm going to do right now, am I convincing myself that it's the right thing to do based on all of these circumstances that I really don't have control over? And if that's the case and I can't control it, then am I actually going to get that result that I want, or is it going to turn into one giant mess that backfires on me because I was putting all of that trust in the limited information or knowledge that I have?
Mm. Well, I think our listeners got way more than they bargained for today. I think they were like, yeah, no, we understand why Nino likes having Maria on. These are free sessions for him to work out his stuff. So let me kind of wrap things up by saying, if you made it to this point, first of all, thank you for your plowing through all of that. But that there are these 6 different stages of change. And thank you, Maria, for outlining what those are and how we move kind of from one to the other. But the idea was, when you relapse, to really, truly think about how it is that you're thinking about the decisions that you've made, how those decisions made you feel, so that you can address those, change them, so that when you're facing a similar situation that may call for debt in the future, you can approach it differently.
Yes.
Is that a good summary?
Yes, and you can apply it to just about any behavior that you want. And that's another really great reason to understand how these all work, and just to remember that if you continue to relapse, if it's a different behavior that, I mean, it's all money related, but if it's, it might not always be around debt. It might be around, certain spending or the way that you invest or whatever. If you continue to recognize what those things are and then not repeat those behaviors, even if you're going through the cycles again, you're actually lessening the chances of continued relapse, because you're strengthening your plan with each of those different little lapses. And then that will allow you to then become maintenance, like we talked about, and actually exit the cycle altogether eventually.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for joining us, and I cannot wait to have you on again in the future.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Nino. Have a great day.
That does it for this episode of the New Money Habits podcast. Remember, if you have any questions, make sure to hit us up on social at New Money Habits, and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please consider leaving a 5-star rating and review to help us spread this message of hope to people looking for a better plan for their money.